Hello chess friends! In this video chess lesson we will continue to talk about some Rook endgames classics. If you missed to see the first part of Rook endgames classics, take a look information about that in the right upper corner. This is the position from the game between Emanuel Lasker and Akiba Rubinstein, and the game was played in 1914 in Petersburg. In this position, White has positional advantage because he has an outside passed pawn and more actively placed rook. White is on the move and White played rook f4. After b4, White plays excellent move b3 and now Black is in zugzwang. Black played rook f7 and White uses the moment to push his pawn to f6 because by any move the pawn goes forward, it will restrict more Black's rook and decrease the space available for a Black rook and increase the space available for actively placed White's rook. Now Black played king d6, king d4, king e6, and it is now White on the move. White has, we have learned, as many tempos as he needs with his rook, and he's playing now rook f2. It was important in this position to play either rook f2 or rook e1, because in order to win this game, White will need to shift this rook over a file to attack from the side. If now Black captures the pawn on f6 by playing rook f6, that is of course very bad move, because White will simply win both of the pawns and he will easily win this trivial pawn endgame. So after rook f2, the only move is king d6, and now this rook is going to a2 and will attack along a file. Of course, again, it's not possible to capture the pawn on f6, because after rook a6, again, rooks will be traded, and White will have winning pawn endgame. So rook c7 was played, rook a6 check, king d7, rook b6. At this moment, Akiba Rubinstein resigned the game, position is completely lost, Black is going to lose both of his pawns, and White has easy win. This position is from the game where White was Frank Marshall and Black was Mikhail Chigorin. The game was played in 1905. And in this position we can see that White has two weak pawns, pawn on a3 and pawn on d4. It is now Black on the move, and what do you think, what is the best move for Black? It is obvious that Black can make this check rook c3 and immediately win a3 pawn. But if this happens, that would be a big mistake for Black, because now it will allow White to completely activate king e4, rook takes a3, king d5, king e7, king c6, rook a4, rook e2 check, and then d5. And now suddenly, no matter that Black is a pawn up, this is completely unclear position. Instead of allowing that to happen, Black has very strong move king e6. There is no need for Black to hurry. There is no need to win that pawn on a3 immediately. Black will first activate his king and stop White to activate himself. If now White plays king e4, then simply f5 and White king will be forced to go back. So White played rook b3 to keep his pawn and to stop rook c3. But fantastic post for Black's king is d5 square. Now the pawn on d4 is under attack and the only move is rook d3. f5, h3, h5. If, for example, now White plays h4, Black will just play g6, and look how White is in a zugzwang now. Now he must lose some of the pawns. For example, if rook d2, rook c3 check, and then king f2, and rook a3, this is winning position. Or of course, if rook d3, we simply trade, and this is trivial winning pawn endgame, because this passed pawn on b file will be used as a decoy and Black will easily win the game. That is why after h5 White played king e2 and decided to give up this pawn on d4 square. Rook d4, rook c3, rook e4 check, king d2, and now very important move h4. The idea of this move is to break up this pawn structure on the king side and to create more weaknesses among white pawns. Rook c7, pawn takes on g3, rook takes on g7, rook takes f4, and rook takes g3. It looks like that nothing special happened, but now this black's f-file pawn is a passed pawn and very dangerous pawn, while the pawn on h-file can be easily blockaded. King e5, king e2, rook c4, rook g6, rook a4, rook g3 to defend the pawn on a3, and f4. White played rook b3 now, and now, for example, there is a possibility for black to make mistake. Fortunately, Chigorin didn't make mistake here, but king e4 is interesting and tempting move to be played, but there is one trick hidden here how white can have excellent move now not to lose this game anymore, and that move is rook b4. And after trading of the rooks, king d4, king f3. Now, for example, if we have king c4 now, then white will advance his pawn and both sides now promote at the same time. And after king f4, even white is a little bit better. Most likely the game will end as a draw, but now white has even winning chances. Or if king e5 to defend the pawn on f4, then white has an outside passed pawn which now can be used as a decoy, and black loses his f4 pawn. Now black is much slower and he's fighting for a draw, and there will be no problem for black to make draw, but of course win is not possible. Black will just wait for white to win both of the pawns, and then after king b7 to obtain a position and to have drawn endgame. That is why in this position king e4 would be a big mistake, but the move which wins the game is just rook c4. And after king d1, let's see what happened to the end of the game. King e4 now, h4, f3, king e1, king f4, h5, and now first rook c1 check, and then rook c2 check to keep the rook on the second rank, and king g3, h6, rook e2 check first, and then rook h2. Simply the idea was to move the king one square away from the promotion square, and now it is clear that white has no chance in this game. Black easily wins the game after king d2, f2, rook b8, and promotion. White resigned the game. This is how Chigorin won this interesting rook endgame. This is the last position for today's lesson. This endgame is from the game in which white was ex-world champion Jose Raul Capablanca and black was Seveli Tartakower. The game was played in New York in 1924. We see in this position that white has this weak pawn on c3, which he will lose anyway, but on the other side he has a very dangerous protected passed pawn on g-file. Position is not clear at all, and let's see how white found an excellent way to make progress in this position and to even win the game at the end. Obviously, as we said, it's not possible to defend the pawn on c3, so he played king to g3. The idea is to play king h4, g6 and king g5 to activate the king and make some threats with the king, rook and the passed g pawn. So after rook c3, king h4, rook f3. Now it's clear that black can even win f4 pawn, so white will lose one more pawn. But at the g6, now we see that there is this entrance for white's king on g5 square. After rook takes f4, king g5, rook e4. What do you think now? Is it good or bad to capture black's pawn on f5? The answer is that it would be very bad move, because the presence of this pawn is a shelter for white's king, and it is excellent for white if that pawn remains on the board. If king takes on f5, then rook d4, king f6, rook f4 check, and no chance for white to make progress in this game anymore. it will end as a draw most likely. That is why, after rook e4, the best move is of course king f6. Now there is a checkmate threat rook h8, so king g8 is forced move, rook g7 check, king h8, and then rook c7 check. We wanted first to force black king to go to the corner. If now, for example, black captures the pawn on d4, we have checkmate, of course, rook c8, so he must play rook e8 to stop the checkmate. There is no other way. Look now how all black pieces are passive on the last rank and how white is extremely active. Now it's a time to win this pawn on f5, king f5, rook e4, king f6, again checkmate threat, rook f4, and king e5. Let's see now how step by step white is capturing all black's pawns. Rook g4, and now important move g7 first, and if now rook takes g7, rook g7, king d5, white king is much faster to win both of black's pawns on the queen side, and white easily wins. So he must play king g8, he can't capture the pawn. And then rook a7, one more black's pawn is gone. Rook g1 was played, king takes d5. Suddenly almost all black's pawns are gone now. Rook c1, king d6, rook c2, d5, rook c1, black can just mark time, there is no any way to make progress, position is completely lost. Another exchange offer, of course it's not possible for black to accept that, and then simply king c6. Black won the pawn on a file, but now white, look here, does not want to capture the pawn on b6. He simply advances his pawn, now nothing stops this promotion, and black resigned the game. This is how Capablanca won in this great classical rook endgame. That would be all for this video chess lesson. If you want to see some specific content in my chess lessons, please place the comment below my video on YouTube. Take a look at the suggested videos and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel.